Hello and welcome to another episode of Business and Bubble Tea. Here on the podcast, I am so excited to be introducing Petros Djakouris, the co-founder and curator of Beehive, as well as a mentor on a German accelerator. Petros, it's fantastic to have you with us today.
Hi, William. Hi, Roberta. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome, Petros. And first of all, where did your journey with China started?
It started very randomly. It was supposed to be one gap year, which I persuaded my best friend to come on board with me. And from one day to the other, we kind of went from studying, like normal students in the UK, which is what many Cypriots do. We went from that to being English teachers for some reason at a kindergarten, teaching 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in Beijing. So
Nice.
And the 1 year turned into 2 years because the plan was kind of like, there are many Cypriots who can do a master's in the UK, but not many Cypriots can actually speak Zhongwen, like Chinese. So the second year was dedicated to learning Chinese, and then the third year led to job opportunities, and then it became 4 years, 5 years, and now for some reason I'm in Spain, but still working with China remotely. So I'm running a company from Spain in China, which is, I guess, interesting.
It's brilliant, and I just want to know, like, what really got you excited about China? So you had the taste of the UK, and then you started pursuing your master's program in China. Whereabouts were you based in China, and like what kind of gave you I like to think of it as a kind of China bug. What kind of made you stay? If I see what you mean.
I think that it's there are many people who might say that, I always loved Chinese food. I see the potential in China's economy. I see all of this and that, but that was none of that for me. It was more like I felt that it would have been a better use of my time to stay in China than going back to the UK and doing what most Cypriots do. Because I come from Cyprus, a very tiny island in the Mediterranean Sea. So Cyprus used to be a British colony. So many Cypriots do, they do their studies in the UK, and they do like their masters at fancy universities and what have you. But what I would say is that it was very, very random. I never had a China bag, and the China experience happened very randomly. This guy came to my university. I was in Nottingham at that time. You can tell from my British accent.
It's phenomenal.
I don't even try. I woke up like this. I'm not even having tea right now with honey and thyme. But it's
almost
very
Dickensian,
random,
shall I say?
Yes, you could, but it's very random. I'm not that many people would say that. It was a very rational and logical decision, and I'm being futuristic. I see in the future, like it's all about China, blah 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 blah. But for me, it was very random. Just this guy appeared out of nowhere at my university once, and he was like, teach English in China, and I'm like, okay, why not? And I thought that I would be in a village, doing volunteering, but it ended up being in a metropolis of 20 million people, like Beijing, which was an amazing and absolutely incredible experience. So I couldn't just let it at the teaching part. I went from teaching English to studying Chinese full-time, then working full-time at a Chinese tech company as the only foreigner. So I was the only laowai, as we say in China. Mm-hmm. And the whole experience has been very, very... I guess personally rewarding in terms of self-awareness, and not just professionally, but especially personally, because I got to understand what I really want from life. I fell in love with cultures. In that right now, I live in Spain, learning Spanish, but working with China. Like a couple of months ago, I was learning Spanish using Chinese for some reason. That didn't work out very well, but I think that it's everyone is attracted to China, or they work with China for different reasons. And for me, it was very, very random. Yes.
And what was it like, I guess, being the only foreigner in a Chinese tech company? What was that like?
It was amazing. It's our founder he's a previous employee at Alibaba. Yep. So even though you had this 996 culture and people worked really hard. You also felt like a big family. Like we would have lunch all together, and after lunchtime, people would nap anywhere, like on tables, on sofas, on the floor. It was pretty amazing. And we went on ski trips.
Yeah.
We did a lot of team building, and in general, people. I didn't feel like they were treating me like a foreigner. I felt that they really tried to embrace me for who I am, and they tried to learn about Cyprus. Not many Chinese people, or not many people in general, know what is Cyprus, but they were genuinely super nice to me. The learning curve was very steep, especially in the beginning. I had an amazing manager who worked at Coca-Cola, but it was a very good experience. Like I did more of my work in English, but my communication with my colleagues was mostly in Chinese. So I got to improve my Chinese tremendously during that time. But I also understand like how Chinese workers, consumers, and bosses. I got a taste of the Chinese tradition. Like you're at the dinner.
What do you think really made
feedback.
your kind of made it successful for you in that role? Like, what do you think really helped you succeed whilst you were there?
Yeah, I think that I was very curious and I had a lot of ideas. So essentially, it's a tech company that has two products that are linked because they both use AI. But one is like a weather forecast app, and the other one is a translation app. So I focused on the translation app, and I was the one who kind of came up with the name. Lingo Cloud is like a
nice
translation. Yeah, Lingo Cloud, so like from Duolingo, more or less. But anyway, so Lingo Cloud is an app that has like a Chrome extension as well, so you can upload documents in Chinese and translate between the two languages. But the idea is that because it's AI generated translation, like people have different accents, as you can tell, and I love different accents. And one of the things that I did at the company was community building for the Lingo Cloud, and I would invite like people from Africa, people from Russia, people with different accents, and we would use this as a test case to improve the app and stuff. So I got to leverage my my connections in Beijing because I organized a lot of different events, and I had a lot of
that inevitable Guanxi comes in handy.
Guanxi. But I think that it's you have to find yourself. You have to find a way to make yourself useful, because a career in China, especially for a foreigner, is not a straight path. You need to find a way to make yourself useful and find a way to leverage your unique talents, which could be your language skills, which could be your knowledge of the Western or whatever your country's culture.
Yep.
And try to find a way to make yourself useful, because many Chinese employers don't really know how to utilize foreign talent, and they still don't. Maybe they've improved throughout the years, but there's no standard path. You start as a trainee and you do this and da, 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 da. It's more like you have to constantly try and find a way to make yourself useful. It's like being an entrepreneur. Yes.
Yeah, and has this led you, I guess, into the ideation of Beehive? Is that kind of spirit what led you through to creating Beehive and how that runs?
Yeah, I think that was actually we started Beehive before even before working at the company. I was studying. Okay. Yeah, I was studying at a Chinese university, and at a certain point of time, I felt completely lost with my career and life, which is what many people feel all the time, even though they don't admit it. But anyway, I admitted to myself, Petros, what are you doing with your life? You studied economics in the UK, and then you were teaching English, and now you're studying Chinese in Beijing. Where are you going with this? You didn't
what boxes are you ticking?
Yes, I mean, you didn't follow the traditional path of being an accountant, which was my father's dream. Becoming an accountant. I have a special relationship with accountants. Anyway, I'm very no offense to anyone in accounting, but it was just not for me. But I think that while I was studying Chinese and while I was lost with my career, I went to the university's career department, right? So because I was very spoiled, I think that Europeans are very spoiled in a multi-dimensional, in a series of different ways, like Europeans. So while studying in the UK, I got to benefit from a very organized and very holistic career service department. So I thought that this would be the case in China, but that was not. I went to the Chinese university, knock knock. There was no one there to help me with my career, with my CV. There were not even events, like nothing happening in Beijing back in 2016, which is 7 years ago. I think we tried to change more.
You have to be kind of, I guess, a go-getter. Is that the idea, or like almost entrepreneurial
Like
in your how you
yes.
how you do things?
Yeah. But at that point of time, I was just lost in my everything, in my life. I mean, I'm like, what are you doing with this? You know, you come from a tiny island in Europe that nobody knows, and you're doing something very different. I mean, at that point of time, there were like maybe 20 Cypriots in China. So people from Cyprus, and I think maybe 5 of them worked at the embassy, so they had no choice; they had to be there.
Yeah.
So I was one of the 15 Cypriots who kind of made a choice to be there, along with my best friend, which I eloquently persuaded to come with me. But anyway, I think that the Beehive idea came up because of this frustration and the desperation of, like, you know, I mean, this shouldn't be it. There should be some kind of career service. There should be some kind of support. There should be some kind of mechanism that helps students with finding their paths, especially foreign students. And that's how we started doing Beehive. We started with a speed networking event. So I personally invited like 20 friends, like one-to-one message, you know, and the idea was just like speed networking to get everyone to experience what it was. It was very revolutionary and innovative back then. And I think that it was what we needed as students, and like as foreign students in China. Also included Chinese students, of course. I mean, that's the point, you know, because even though it's one university. So in China, you have a lot of universities that call themselves international, but essentially every university has kind of 2 sides, the Chinese and the foreign part, the international part. And these 2 sides rarely meet each other unless it's like Chinese language exchange or Chinese holidays, and I mean, you know, celebrations.
I think
which is,
you kind of often find you have to sort of really push to get more involved with the other side. I think, at least that was my feeling. I mean, even with the, you know, international accommodation is sort of separate as well in a way sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's very segregated, extremely segregated. And I think it's not just in China as a country, but I think in general, like when I was in the UK, you know, the Cypriots hang out with the Greeks and Cyprus together. The Italians with the Italians, maybe a bit of Spanish.
Hey, Roberta.
Like, yeah, we tend to mingle with, you know, the same breed of animals that we are. So I think it's the same case in China, but in China it's more like segregated between Chinese and the foreigners, the laowai. It's not like because you feel that you have much more in common with other like non-Chinese. Yes, the other laowai, because they also live in a simulation. Because I think that living in China is like a simulation in many different ways. And it's what you make of.
You entered the Matrix, right?
Which pill is it? Blue or red? I don't remember which one I took, but maybe I took both of them. I don't know. But I think that living in China helped me to understand what is important to me, and that's when I realized that, you know, I love helping people. I love helping them with their careers, like coaching, and I was always into motivational speakers and speeches and stuff. Like back when I was studying for exams, I would constantly have in my head like Tony Robbins,
Les Brown,
Les Brown, like
those sorts of guys, or
everyone. I mean, everyone. Anyway, so like living in China enabled me to realize that, you know, I love working with people. I love helping people, and that's how Beehive came to be, which essentially started as a student club, and then like a non-profit volunteer association, and now like a company that we incorporated while me not being in China, which is very interesting. So I think that if you want to work with China in any way, you need to start building relationships and just have a good reason to work with China. And it's not just about the economy, it's not about the potential, it's not well, if you love Chinese food and you want to open a Chinese restaurant, then Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Makes
that's
yeah,
very,
follows.
but but it's not just I like
There's
Chinese
much more.
food. Yeah, there is
Yeah.
much more to that, and yeah, I mean, let's admit it that China is not very good at promoting itself across the world, right? And that's why
I mean, that is the
uh,
point of business and
of
bubble
this
tea. We're
initiative.
trying to,
Love it.
like,
Yeah,
peel back the layers here.
I love it, and I love it, and that's why I'm here. Like, I mean, we need to kind of. It's not about, and I want to repeat myself. It's not about Chinese money or the economy or the food. It's much more than that. It's like a different way of seeing life, and it's a very different perspective. Like people who visit China and they live in China, I feel they're very open-minded in different ways because they've experienced being foreigners in
Yep.
a foreign country, and yeah, I mean, here where I live in Spain right now, I'm still like a foreigner, but I'm in Europe, so it's not in the same way. Like, but in being in China is like being an expat squared or cubed or however you call it. It's like being a foreigner in a foreigner in a foreigner in a foreigner.
I mean, we had
Yeah.
Zach, who founded the Young China group, I think, and he talks
Nice.
about it being so much deeper
Yeah.
than sort of this sort of superficial high growth country, that it's got a very kind of deep rooted tradition that
Mm.
no one really, it's kind of heavily debated, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what I guess drives, a huge amount, at least personally for me,
Yeah.
interest in like understanding more.
Yes. No, I mean, I lived in China for almost 5 years, and I feel that my understanding of Chinese culture and Chinese people is still like maybe 1% of what it could be. There's
Yeah.
still so many things to learn, like history, the culture, and it's easy to underestimate stuff or situations, but you cannot underestimate a country with such a long history of doing so many different things. I mean, in economy, culture, I mean, political affairs. It's like a very interesting thing to learn about, and it's going to help you to see the world in a different way and help you develop in many different ways. But I think you need to learn Chinese to be able to do that as well, right? And I think that it doesn't matter where you are. I think that learning the local language, no matter what it is, I mean, that helps you to unlock a tremendous potential of communicating and understanding people, but also at communicating with yourself on a different level. I mean, how many times do you catch yourself thinking in Chinese, like you say "mama hu hu" or this or that? Is like, it's
Jega was a very common one.
yeah, yes. Jega is this, yes.
Yeah.
But yes, sorry, Roberta, I interrupted you with my
No,
enthusiasm. Yes,
Going back to Beehive.
let's go back.
Can I ask what does the name come from, and also what's the mission of the company? What do you do exactly? How do you help students?
Yes, so Beehive has been around since 2017 as a community, and we've only incorporated very recently, last year, I think. Essentially, so far we've organized more than 100 different types of events, mostly workshops, job fairs, online, offline. And the idea is that you are in a hive, in a safe environment where you can exchange ideas,
A different
your
matrix,
mind.
or
Different matrix. Yes, it's like matrix squared, cubed, whatever.
two red pills to this one.
Yes, yeah. But the idea is it's all about community, right? So Beehive is above all a community, and we've worked with more than 50 volunteers, like hundreds of trainers that focus on coaching. These guys, they're like very busy and important people, and they came to our students to teach them about self-awareness, cross-cultural communication, like a lot of different sexy things, or emotional intelligence, like non-violent communication, a lot of things that we're not taught at school, but I think they are essential, or like growth mindset, or how to do planning, how to do goal setting, how to find your strengths, all of these like sexy things that we're not taught at school. We tried to deliver it to students for free, and we still most of the things that we do, we deliver to students for free. But now what we try to focus on is to have more collaborations. Like right now, we have an upcoming job fair that we're organizing with Notre University in China. We have another job fair in Beijing coming up, and we work with universities more like a marketing platform / event management platform for them. But everything that we do, we deliver to students for free, because we believe that you need to find yourself in this hive for free. And then we think that career support should be something that is widely available to everyone, because resources are not equally distributed to people, and we try to help people to get closer to where they want to be in life through our free coaching, free training, free events, and what have you. And that's essentially what Beehive tries to do. We try to help people to unlock their potential, personal, professional. I mean, people come to Beehive for different reasons. Maybe they want to make more foreign friends if you're Chinese. Maybe you want to make more Chinese friends if you're a foreigner, or you want to practice your Chinese, your English, or you want to develop your career, you want to get referrals, you want to connect with amazing mentors. I mean, because our speakers that we work with are like incredible in many different ways in their respected industries.
And we have time.
Yes.
So we have time for one final question, and I
Yes.
just wanted to ask. So I'm buzzing away, and I enter the Beehive. The Matrix, so to speak, the new Matrix.
I love it. This is my first time I think of this in this way, man. Thank you, William. Now we have content for at least 2 or 3 more months.
That's for free as well,
Matrix memes all the way. I'll be tagging
100%.
you on Instagram, WeChat, okay? Yes.
Just get BBT involved.
100%. Just send me the social media handle. I will post it everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I just wanted to ask, like, what
Yes.
do you think a graduate can do to sort of that wants to work in China? What do you think a graduate can do to kind of best sort of set themselves up? Maybe kind of, I guess, de-risk this idea of being a bit sort of, we all follow this sort of, you talk about following a very conventional path, you did economics, there's an expectation that you be an accountant, and now you're on this crazy journey. And we're interviewing you now about it. And I want to, like, how can you, I guess, best arm yourself for trying to engage better with China or set yourself up for success there?
Yeah, I think that everything comes from the reason why you do anything, right? So it's like Simon Sinek says, start with why. So you need to figure out your magic circle. Like, why do you want to work with China? How are you going to work with China, and what are you going to do about it? So I think that I would actually discourage people from working with China unless they have a very clear way, or they already have some kind of experience. So if you already speak Chinese, if you've lived in China, if you are, I don't know, super passionate about Chinese products or Chinese technology, like TikTok is a Chinese company, like Huawei is a Chinese company. I mean, unless you have a very strong reason to work with China, I would encourage you not to do that. I mean, don't just work with China for fun or for whatever. I mean, if you want to go on a gap year and learn Chinese or try to experience China, and yes, why not? But while being there, or while trying to see why to work with China, it's not like the Chinese economy is not just an important, it's not a reason on its own to work with China. So if you want to work with China, first you need to understand why do you want to work with China. Another of course, you have to learn Chinese. It's not an option, I think.
Very much.
Unless you have like 10 years, 20 years of work experience, you're already established in some kind of industry, and you can be a bridge between China and your industry or your network so unless you're super established in somehow, or you're in an industry and you have a clear technical knowledge of something, then you have to learn Chinese, or else you are setting yourself for failure if you're like 20 and you go to China and you're like, you speak only English and you think that you can succeed in China. But again, you do have people who can succeed in China without speaking Chinese, right? But that means that they're very good at making friends and they can get things done by others who speak Chinese for them, right? So you could do essentially an education consultancy or something that has to do with your culture. Let's say you teach Australian culture, you teach this, whatever, in English, right? And you can be very successful at it, and you don't even have to speak any Chinese. But you need to at least learn the basics so you can build rapport with your clients, your partners, and stuff like that. But I think it's a safe and logical and rational step to learn Chinese. And third, what would be the third thing? Did I say not to work with China if you don't have an important reason?
Yes. You should start with why, which is almost a bit Simon Sinek.
Yeah, but you need to be, working with China, I consider myself a slowpreneur. People don't know if I'm moving, and I'm like, I might be working all day on something and people don't really know what I'm doing, because I think that being an entrepreneur comes with not knowing what you're doing. So that's how you innovate, and you
it's
come
a lot
up with
wondering what you're doing, trying to be useful, I find. But
yes. But I think that you need to start with where you are, right? So you need to see, okay, what connections do I have right now that are connected with China, or is there a local Confucius Institute at my town or at my country, or can I work with Chinese embassy in my country and vice versa? Can I work with my local embassy in China if I'm based in somewhere in China? What are the needs? You need to be able to identify opportunities. I mean, can I bring something from China to my country and vice versa? Maybe that's a way of working. Maybe it's a product. Maybe it's a service. But I think that you need to develop an intellectual curiosity when it comes to China. But at the same time, never pose yourself as an expert or a China watcher, whatever, and never be political. Never be political unless you work with the Chinese government, which can bring prosperity to your Chinese company on the ground. But that can mean that you're excluding some opportunities of working outside of China. But I think that if you're smart enough, you can do both. But I would never openly share political views or be political about China, because it's a very, very sensitive topic, and I would.
I guess it's this idea of not getting involved in anyone's mafan, right?
Yes.
You don't.
And because you have, but you have to understand that it doesn't matter how many years you spend in China or how long you work with China or whatever, or even you get married to a Chinese, you have babies, you have like the residence permit. You're still a foreigner, right? You're still a monkey in the zoo, and you have to be comfortable with being a monkey in the zoo. If you want to work with China in any capacity, that would mean living in China or working at a Chinese company or working with a Chinese company. You're still some kind of different, right? But it's up to you to make that an advantage and not be like, oh, don't treat me like this. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, you should not be expected to be treated the same as in your home country or in Europe as in China. And it's, when in Rome, do as the Romans. And what is the other word? Like, make yourself at home wherever you are. I think if you have this tool, and what I know is that I know nothing. You need to be very. I mean,
is that Socrates or?
Yes, you have to be quite philosophical. One of the two. You have to be a bit philosophical and a bit. You have to be curious to work with China, because it's not like, oh, okay, I now work with China, and that's why many entrepreneurs fail, because they just focus on the quick win. I'm gonna go there and sell. If I sell one toothpick to the Chinese, I'm a billionaire. Or I just need one big thing, and that. No, it's like a long journey, like China entrepreneurship, and you have to be prepared for that, and you have to enjoy the process and not just be there for the results, no matter what that be, because you control the process, but you cannot control the results. So you have to be very, very satisfied and excited and driven with the process along the way. I mean, you're making this podcast right now, right? You don't know where this can lead to, but I think that you guys are enjoying. Yes, and that's the point. I think you have to have fun, or at least learn something throughout what you're doing. I mean, that's it. That's my mumbling for you today, I think.
No, it wasn't. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. That is all we've got time for today, but thank you so much for joining us on Business and Bubble Tea, Petros.
Thank you, William.
Entirely